Hey guys, how are you? This clip has Francis the Market Sniper and also got elements of the Reset Sniper in it. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that are a little bit intersectional with me right now. You see, I'm getting to use that word as well now, like our language controllers do. Like intersectional feminism and intersectional this and that. Well, I've had a couple of events that have all intersected simultaneously. And there's a common theme at these junctions where all these various intersections are taking place. And I want to discuss them, and there's a main driver that comes through all of this. So what's been happening in my world for a while, that's one of the highways that has intersected with another, that has a common thread in it that I'm going to be talking to you about tonight. Well, the first one is that I'm recording our premium training to the best of our ability to last hopefully for 5 or 6 years. It needs to be really high quality recorded, but the content and everything I want to say has to be captured. This for me is my HVF narrative book, totally spoken in all elements that I think are important for becoming a successful trader. And the section that was going to be one of the first, but a real foundational rock that I think I've advanced my thinking a lot since I first recorded myself on this topic, was the mindset, the mental posture of becoming successful in trading. And there's a key single aspect of this that I'm going to discuss in this one YouTube. And so this has been the main highway. I've got these thoughts, this content that's been captured, these diagrams I've created, these PowerPoint presentations I've created, the practice I've put into it, the actual recording of all of this, the capture, and it means like recency syndrome. In your mind, you continue to see things that correlate to something you've experienced recently. It's called recency bias in a way. So I'm seeing a lot of things that are tying in with the content I've recently created because it's very much in the forefront of my mind. So we'll come back to that. So that's the one highway that's now going to be intersecting. Now within this topic of peak performance trading, developing the mindset and mental posture of a peak performance individual in your field, and in our field I'm talking about trading, but actually everything that applies to trading applies to you in life and many other fields. So it's very difficult to become exceptional and develop in this field without similar ability and gifts being granted in all aspects of your life. This is what I love so much about trading, and it's probably the same for many other activities. It's a microcosm of life, but it's an accelerated version of it. Anyway, without getting into too much of the detail, 3 of the main areas is dealing with a probability-based game, an uncertainty environment and a probability-based game, without provoking your fight or flight responses, which is your amygdala fast reacting brain's main response. Another area that we discuss, and there's so much to be delved in that one circle. Like our logo, it's got overlapping circles, of which that's one. The other circle is values, axiology. It's got a lot to do with Dr. John DeMartini. Have you got big reasons for achieving big success? Without big reasons and big motivations, you don't achieve big success. Have you written your 200 reasons to succeed? And they're not all materialistic. It's how you will affect change, not only in yourself and those immediately around you, like your loved ones, which we all love and all want good things for, but what are you leaving to the world on a far bigger scale? Do you have big reasons? And that you align with your goal to become successful in trading, and suddenly you're triggering to yourself and your mind far stronger reasons and motivations for success. A third circle is actually biology. Contrary to traditional psychology's thinking, every thought is like a plant that comes out of an emotion. There is an emotion associated with every thought. You can't have the plant without the soil that it was gestated in. Emotion is everywhere. So people that say, I do unemotional trading, it's absolute nonsense. What they're trying to say is they're being dispassionate, calm, and disciplined about their emotion that is associated with any thought. as opposed to being highly volatile, hyper, in fear, in anxiety, which is just fear of future pain, anxiety, and aspects like that. So in every thought there's an emotion, and actually the role of those emotions, a lot of the seed of that emotion, whether you're feeling awesome or in fear, actually has root in your biology as well. Now, intersecting with all this work that I've been doing, I've also got a little bit run down. I've come into 2020 a bit undercooked on the health side. I've had migraine headaches. I won't bore you with rhyme and verse, but picked up some weight, exhausted, just seemed to have hit a wall in many, many aspects. And I'm being pretty dark. I'm only seeing downside in situations. So as opposed to the values that everything that is a curse and a challenge also gives you a gift and an opportunity, I'm only seeing the one side. So transacting or intersecting with the highway that is this mindset work that I've been done, I've actually been in a bad biological state. And I've noticed how the emotional soil that is generated is one of frustration, lack of flow, bad emotionality, which is leading then into the wrong kind of thought feeds. So this third circle is very important. Anyway, these three circles make up, and we drill down to each one of those into immense detail in how and things you can do that empower and raise yourself to a peak level to be efficient in trading. You might know Malcolm Gladwell's story about the 10,000 hours to efficiency. Think about this man on his trumpet, trombone, I'm not even too sure which of the wind instruments he's got there, and I'm sure he's some famous guy, might be, you know, the Miles Davises of this world. One of you guys in the comments will probably educate me. I've intentionally put him in the back. He's toiled. He's developed conscious competence to the point of doing it so much that he's developed unconscious competence. And this is part of the 10,000 ideas to becoming really, really successful. But all this is blurb and prelude, because I'm talking about wanting you to become really powerful in trading. And the fourth item that I'm going to mention is something I've never heard any trader or trader educator, and they are different, I'm wearing two hats myself, ever mentioned before. And it's unique to HVF method, and it's a fourth ingredient. It's the 3+1. There's always three. Three's a magic number with me, and occasionally I have to go +1. There's never 4. In other words, it's a pyramid. There's a 1 on top. And the +1 that I've added in on this recorded content, that, as I say, you'll have to be a paid premium member to get access to, but I'm going to give you an idea, is language. And not so much general language, but your lexicon that you utilize when discussing your trading. You need, if you're really serious about peak performance in trading, you need to think about the vocabulary you're using. And you're probably thinking, oh, hold on, Francis, you're getting a little bit woo-woo now. Come on, what's that got to do with me being successful, going long, short, putting a stop loss, having a target, etc., etc. And here's the level of detail that I want you to start thinking about if you really want to be successful in trading. And I'll also include how the reset sniper is overlapping with this as another intersection, but that'll come later. So to become successful in trading, my general opinion is there's certain words you should cease to use. And the problem with ceasing to use in a trading context is that actually you can't be two different people. There isn't Francis the trader and Francis the everyday Joe Schmo. In other words, anything you decide to cease to utilize or remove from your lexicon of phraseology, from your trading world, has to be removed from your lexicon entirely. Because you can't shapeshift between being Francis the trader and Francis everything else. And it feels fraudulent. It seems you're not who you say you are. Because actually, you're one person and one being. And the difference is your subconscious mind doesn't know which hat you're talking out, which pocket you're talking out of at any one time. So what are these words that I'm saying actually you should cease to start to continue using in your lexicon? Which ones should be removed entirely? And I'm going to start with my least favorite word for anyone to use. And it's become my least favorite word, not just in trading, as it should, but generally. So many crimes get committed globally in all sorts of fields because of this one word. The word I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to give you 3 or 4 words, and I'm going to give you a couple of rules on how not to speak generally, linguistically, in terms of tonality and implication. If you want to learn more, as I say, the premium content or grab the free mini, go ahead. But this is free view, and I want you to have this on me. The first word you need to remove from all linguistic use in your vocabulary is the word believe or belief. So I'm going to say it again. Believe is one of the most dangerous words in your vocabulary, and anybody else's for that matter. So here's my understanding of what a belief is. A belief is something that you were given when really young and your conscious mind was insufficiently developed, and it was programmed into your subconscious mind whilst young. It was got in through the door. It was injected like a vaccine that you never asked for as a baby. In other words, you were never rationalized into it, and as a result, it's very difficult to be rationalized out of it. In other words, it's a foundational element that you accept as fact without any rhyme or reason. Included in that would be, as a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, you know, the Easter Bunny, and many other things. Now you'll say, come on, I know about those. We grew out of those and we dropped those. Well, there's a lot of other things you've been given that you're still holding on to, that maybe are a little bit less obvious than Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and many other things, but are incredibly, incredibly damaging to you. The longer I've lived and the longer I've traded and the longer I've continued to learn and do research and study history and relearn and go back on things I've took for granted, the more I realize how little I truly do know and can take as given foundational fact. Voltaire was it, the winners always write your history. And Twain was the man that said, wherever you have 90% of agreement on something, position yourself in the minority. Those are true wisdoms, and there's reasons for them. So much deception, so much is out there that you shouldn't be allowing yourself to believe anything. So what do you do? If I remove those words from your lexicon, how do you talk English about things that you currently take as given or as a fact? Well, you need to start saying, I assess, I analyze. On balance of probability, I've taken that. Now, here's the important bit, because you're thinking, how does this all tie to me becoming a better trader? And I want to warn you about how your subconscious and your conscious mind and language works. Because each word has an energy, an emotion around it that has a certain amount of power or non-power, or that leaves doors open or closes doors. If someone says, I believe in God and I'm a Christian and all the other religions are wrong, he's closing the door on any other alternative theories. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's right, I'm not choosing a dog in this fight. I could have said Muslim, I could have said Jewish, I could have said Buddhist, I could have said any other religion. What I am saying to you is, if I make a statement like that, that means for me to be right about Christianity means that everybody else has to be wrong. And me believing it is something I'm taking at face value, having not been there, not seeing who lived and existed 2,000 years ago, who said what went on in other parts of the world, in the cradle where the Muslim faith was developed, Judaism, Buddhism, and all these other aspects. I have no real insight. In short, most of us are simply not qualified to say. And the best thing to do is to decide not to decide and to sit in the open. Now you're saying, Francis, I don't want to sit here and listen to you about faith and things like that. What's this got to do with trading? This is a trading channel. Well, when we talk about markets, the word belief comes up way too often. And as I'm sensitized and I'm teaching and learning and trading for myself, I have a unique perspective. I have what I've learned about my own experience, and I get to watch and see what I have happening or have happening in my community members. And I hear the language they use, and I see how that language closes the potential to consider alternative views. So here's how it works in your brain. You have your fight or flight response in your amygdala that is the quickest responding thing. It's there to save you from the saber-toothed tiger. And your brain, when in amygdala mode, is a negative mental assessment machine. It's a negativity mental assessment machine. The way it keeps you alive is it keeps forecasting deadly, deathly, injury, potential situations to create fear and anxiety to keep you out of those situations so that you survive. In other words, it's a negative mental assessment machine. That's its job. That's how it keeps you alive. In other words, it keeps saying minefield, minefield, mine over there, mine over here. Keeps you in a state of alertness and often with fear and anxiety as a stimulus to prevent you from getting lackadaisical and setting off a mine eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. Now, this part of your brain jumps in and does the exact same on trading because it can't differentiate the stresses. Trading is a probability, uncertainty-based game, and therefore, because of uncertainty, your brain seeks to eliminate uncertainty. We are comfort-seeking, security and safety-seeking machines. And the way we do that is we keep forecasting potential negative events. And anything uncertain, the negativity is seen by the amygdala. However, all the great gifts are in probability-based games. They're never certain. So we also avoid a lot of the best things by taking no chances and taking no risks. So that's your amygdala-based brain. Now, we talk in, and you will learn this, and you'll hear far more about this, the executive committee of your mind that should be making all your rational decisions. And I talk about developing a sage, a warrior for courage to get you over your fear, a sage for wisdom, a leader, and this thinking has been very powerfully developed by performance-based coaches. This element is not my own content, but I refer to it because I think it's very good content and I've brought it in to our teaching. And a compassionate person. So in your committee of mind, you should have the compassionate person. And I have chosen an avatar for that compassionate person, and I've drawn him and I've shared it with my community. They know who he is. They know how he looks. I can visualize him right now. I've chosen my brave, my courage, my warrior to get me over the fear. And I've chosen my leader who's decisive to make decisions. And I've chosen my sage for wisdom, the non-bias, the critical thinking. And every time we trade, the committee of the mind should be sitting down at the boardroom and asserting, is this something we should be doing? With the scientific approach of disqualification. In other words, you've come to me with a proposal, and this is all self-dialogue. In other words, we are all the roles of all these people. You are both the idea presenter and you are the critic of the idea. This is a trading idea. It is being put forward as something I should do. We should surpass the amygdala response and say, no, I'm not FOMOing in. which is one of the 9 fears I identify in the course content that you will learn. There's 9. FOMO is 1, fear of missing out. I will not rush in and chase the spike. It must go up to the rational center of the mind, and it should be discussed. In other words, we take time and we take ourselves out of must get in, tension in the body, impulse-based behavior, reactionary-based behavior, to rational planning-based behavior, where each member of the committee is brought to the board and gets to discuss this. So when you use certain words, some of these words have been given too much power, and they bypass the rational committee of your mind, and all those avatars that you should be developing, that we will be doing in your premium content with us, who will look after and sit you down and go through the prognosis of the plan, refine it, improve it, dismiss it if it's not worthy, improve it if there's something that can be developed, and bring it all to fruition. If you say, believe, you are saying, this is already a given. I believe the market can go only going up. You are therefore ruling out any discussion, any scope for rational failure. There is no on balance of probabilities. There's no leaving a door that it could go wrong. Even if it's a small percentage, it could go wrong. You've actually closed the possibility. Believe is an absolutist term, and is it exceedingly dangerous. So you might think, well, so what? Well, here's how it works. You have a conscious and a subconscious mind. And everything I'm saying to you is a two-way discussion. You will be hearing it, and the voice I most hear throughout my life is my own voice speaking the same words to you. No communication is mono-directional. It is a matrix. It is a matrix of phraseology, words going out into the internet that some of you are watching, and that I will be hearing. Right now, as I'm saying them, I can hear my tonality, my volume, and I know exactly what I'm saying. So every time you say, I believe the market's going up, you are using a word that has a certain energy that is associated. A belief is something that is totally accepted, that you were probably not rationalized into. And that is a dangerous thing for anybody who's dealing in a probability-based game to have any form of absolutist thought about anything. The people that believed the Swiss franc were holding the 1.2 peg lost their shirts. The brokers lost 500 billion, the UK brokers alone. IG Index, Spreadbex, Apari went bust, FXCM needed recapitalizing. They all believed the Swiss bankers when they said, the peg is central to what we do. The thought that these guys are saying it now, but in a week or two time they might say something else and walk away, never occurred to them. They closed the door. They bought every time it came close to 1.2 on the basis it can only go up from there, until it didn't, until it traded sub 1 and gapped the whole way, and they were entirely annihilated. That's what beliefs did to you. That's what beliefs did to Enron shareholders. You've always got to allow for something not to do, and anything you say in your language that closes the door to that possibility bypasses the executive board in your center brain. It's like where the captain in a major liner sits, you know, the board area. What do they call it? One of you will help me finish. The bridge, where the seaman, the best able seaman, the navigator and the captain all sit looking out ahead of them. You bypass that event and say, we don't need to steer from the bridge. We've got radar. There's no icebergs ahead on the good ship Titanic. No icebergs ahead. Everything is fine. I believe we'll be fine. Famous last words. So your number one word is believe. Let me move a little quicker. What else am I going to ask you to remove from your language and lexicon? And these are going to be hard. And I'm going to talk about self-censorship. and how you should deal with the fact that deep-seated psychological change is tough and language change is tough, because you're in pattern-based behavior where you utilize templates to express yourself, and these words are etched into your lexicon far deeper than you realize. And you actually have to visibly in front of people do self-correction. So 2 other very destructive words, and I'm only going to give you 3. You want the rest, you need to do the course and the program. And the next 2 go hand in hand. Right and wrong. Right and wrong. I was right, you were wrong. Tell me right now, as you saw me say that to you, what kind of energy did you get towards me? And how did you feel about yourself? Was it positive? Not for me, it ain't. Anyone as an individual that says, I was right, immediately is speaking out of a very high ego complex. This is me elevating myself over you when I say I was right and you were wrong. I am pushing you down and myself up by that. And there is an egocentric. In other words, it's a self-elevation, and it is also knocking you down a notch. And if you happen to talk about your trading, which I actually advise you don't do very much, unless you're in the education elements and sphere as well, you should keep your own counsel. I actually, when I teach and I do events and theory weekends, I said, don't talk to your wife about your trading. And guess what happens? You make some money and you always go, hey, check what I've done, Missy. We're going to go on that holiday. Check it out. 50 grand. I did that. I pushed it. How smart am I? And she goes, oh, wow, awesome. She doesn't understand the concept of probability. She doesn't understand that you made lots of little losses. She thinks it's at the gross level. She doesn't see any of the costs, etc. But you haven't explained it. It's your fault. And then she pops in a week later because it was so awesome to hear about this good news you made and how you've come into money and you've just lost 20 grand. And she says, honey, how's it going today? And you're like, piss off. I never said you could come in and ask me about my stuff. Yes, you did. You invited her in when you went to go brag about what you bloody well did. You caused that. She's doing nothing wrong. You set the rules of the game. You only want it to work when you want it to work. And that is ego. So that's why you keep your counsel. Back to right and wrong. Right and wrong are dangerous. They're dangerous. Here's what I would substitute with. Remove the ego. I'm going to give you another word, by the way, which will go with right and wrong. One of the things I also used with the right and wrong is I. I is singular. I means Francis flipping Hunt, sitting right, yeah, all of me. You get it? The governor. Right, yeah, I'm telling you. That's I. It's another very ego-loaded word. Now, you probably notice, and I've sometimes had people ask, I often use the word we. I only aim to use the word we, generally, but you might catch me making a mistake and self-censoring, and we'll come back to that, because the truth of the matter is very little that you think you do solely alone is solely down to you. I have an awesome community of premium clients, so much so that just giving feedback on their setups, I don't do the bulk of the setup searching anymore. I've allowed other people to define a role for themselves searching. That means we accept as a community that we are team building, like Linux. The whole concept, it's being built organically and everyone is a contributor. The answer is always we. And we makes it far less egocentric because you're giving and acknowledging the contribution of others. And when you do that, there's less ego. And if you remove the word right and wrong, and you say, we're accurate in this instance and inaccurate in the other instance, then what you're doing is you're making it more of a scientific approach. Was that accurate? Was it inaccurate? Rather than right, which is absolutist, and wrong. In short, any absolutist language, so here's a tip for you, anything where I say, I guarantee you the market goes up. I can't see it doing anything else. Absolutely. These are all absolute words, absolutist, that block out the committee of your rational mind because you've built a highway through it. You've given a ride-free pass from your amygdala brain straight into activation, where you said it's not even up for discussion. Accuracy, you can always be a little more accurate. Inaccurate, you can always improve and become closer to the mark. And it's a far less egocentric. We were accurate in this instance is so much less ego invested than I was right. And by removing this language from your lexicon, you stop programming your own subconscious mind with absolutisms. You also de-egoize both yourself and you distribute credit to everyone that you interact with who could have contributed to any trade or idea or notion you have. And some of you that say, I'm never going to be in your community, I always trade 100% alone, it's always I. And to you I say, have you never read a trading book? Have you never got an inspiration from somebody else's tweet? Have you never been in a forum where people were discussing something that triggered you to think of something else that you then went to look at? You think you live in isolation? This is a matrix world. In our community, we like to say, we compete with ourselves and we cooperate collectively. If you're someone who thinks this is a zero-sum game and you need someone to lose for you to win, and you operate 100% in isolation, then I think you've got the wrong mental framing. There is absolute abundance out there, and you can, as a collective, have more eyes on the front, which is why we love the fact and the principle of our community, by working with others in a similar direction with a similar style. So there's always somebody who's contributed to you getting a thought. And a matrix and a cooperative always does better than a man alone. If you're to be marooned on an island, you want to be on your own. Do you want to be cook, chef, home builder, hunter, farmer, weatherman, swimmer? Do you want to be all the things? Do you think you're going to do them all brilliantly? Or do you want a community where there's specialization, where there's skill sets? So I want you to think about language. It's the fourth element. And you've probably heard me mention reset. How does reset, as the third intersection with all of this, come into this? So I'm telling you, my biology's been a bit bad. I need to fix that. It's a